I'm here with Melissa Muir, and we are making these amazing textured discs. And the brilliant part of this, as you said, it's just a pre-made disc, and we're just making it fancy.
Yeah. So you just take any different texture, and you can get so many different styles and shapes. There's a number of them: circles, hearts, little bars, anything. And just by adding just a little bit of texture, it completely changes the look of those.
So cool.
And you need very, very few tools. So a few of the tools that I brought, I have a bench block, and this is just a steel block. You want something that's kind of hard, that if you accidentally hit it, it's not going to dent or ding. And then you've got a variety of hammers, and one of the favorite hammers that I have, and it didn't make it here, but one of my favorites are just like the super junky hammers that you get from a yard sale, because it's going to give you a really, really good texture.
Well, I was going to say, actually, somebody once told me if you don't have a bench block, you can actually use the side of an old hammer as a small bench block in a pinch.
You absolutely can. And if you've got a larger hammer, you could also use the face of that as well.
Oh, so, smart.
Yeah, you have a number of options that are there for something like that. Another couple of things that I like to keep handy is a pencil. And what that's going to do is keep your fingers clear so that you don't hammer on your fingers.
That's so clever. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, so that's good. One of the things that you want to keep in mind when you have these different shapes, there are quite a bit of difference in the size, or
like
the thickness.
Depth? Okay.
Yeah, the thickness. And that's going to change the look that you get when you have something like that.
Are the thicker ones harder? And so it's more difficult?
Not necessarily.
Or?
Matter of fact, their metal moves even better because you have so much more metal to move. And so you end up, you really just have to experiment. And you'll see that sometimes the metal stretches, sometimes it will warp a little bit. But it just, the more you play with it, the more you'll know.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, so I have a couple of different things here. So for instance, one of the things that I've done is I've started to create a sketchbook. And I've already stamped with a letter stamp onto the disc.
Okay.
And now what I want to do is go around the surface of this. Now, this particular hammer, I can change out the different heads. Not all hammers are like that, but this one is. And I like this sharp edge. And what I'm going to do is
I've never seen a hammer that looks like that. That's crazy.
Yeah. So
are you using a ton of, are you banging it? Oh, okay.
I'm not. And this one, this is a very, very soft strike. And if I did hammer it really hard, which I totally could, it's going to change the look of what I get.
Oh.
So in this case, I wanted to go nice and soft and smooth, just so that it would just give me that little feathered edge. Now, another thing that I like to do with any of these types of blanks, to finish the edge off, I'll take a hammer that has a rounded edge, and I'll just hammer right here along the edge of this.
Why are you doing that? Is that a look thing or a practicality thing?
No, it's totally decorative.
Okay.
But what it's going to do is change this from a little blank that I bought at the hobby store and turn it into something that was touched by hand, and makes it a much more handmade look.
That's such a great tip. I love that.
Yeah.
It's all these little things that you can do to make something really special that make the difference.
Right, and there's so many different things that you can do, and just the way that you hammer. So for instance, in this case with this star, I actually did that with the same hammer, and I hammered in this direction, and then as I turned it around, I kept the hammer at the point. Oh. Whereas if I take, let's say, for instance, one of these, and then what I would do is hammer around, and just kind of follow that around, then it changes, again, that look that you have.
The look of it. It's almost like doodling, but with a hammer.
Correct.
That's super cool. Now you can get different textures with different tools.
Yep.
Because I see you have such a range.
Yes, yes. And so the rounded hammers are going to give kind of a dimpled look, whereas the hammers that have those flat faces, that's where you're going to get these strikes and these facets that will shine the light back a lot. And so you have that. Then another thing that you can do also is you have different shape stamps. There are different design stamps, and in this case, I have a spiral here. And what you're going to do whenever you have a spiral, or not a spiral, but a stamp, you want to get that face flat down on your metal. You want to stabilize, but you also want to keep your fingers down so that when you go to strike this, and this can be a pretty big strike.
Woo!
Yeah, you want to get some weight back behind that, and that is what's going to give you your impression.
Very cool, and that's obviously how you did all of the letter impressions
Correct.
here.
That's exactly how I did that.
Now, I do notice that some of these impressions seem very dark.
Yes, so what you can do, and there's a number of ways that you can do this, but one of my favorite is just to take a marker, a permanent marker. In this case, this one happens to be a colored one, and I will just color over the face of this.
This feels easy enough that I can do this too.
This is a lot of fun, and by doing it with the colored permanent markers, it gives you a lot more variety. Then once I have that, let that dry a little bit. Otherwise,
That's how I dry things too.
Yeah.
Either wave it around, blow on it.
Yes, or else it ends up on your fingers. And then I'm just going to take this little polishing pad, and this just has a light abrasive to this.
So it's like really tiny sandpaper, like really gentle
Very, very
sandpaper?
fine.
Okay.
And you could do a very fine sandpaper as well.
Would that change the look of the metal?
It can.
Okay.
Yeah, so the grittier your sandpaper, you're going to get more of a matte finish, whereas the really fine papers, they're going to give you more of a polished look. And so now we have our
colored. It's so cool.
Yeah.
That's really neat. And I can see another example of where you use that purple marker down here. I assume this is stamped.
Correct. That was done with the spiral stamp, similar to the first one that I did for you. And then what you can do from there is then you start to embellish your different items. And it just takes a little bit of glue. You can use a 2-part epoxy. You can use a jewelry adhesive.
I was going to say some of the embellishing you've done in these clips, which is so cute, is you've put rhinestones on.
Yeah, and actually these are just really inexpensive little stickers. I found them in the scrapbooking section. There's a couple of different ones, but this has kind of a rose cut to this.
Beautiful.
And it doesn't have that flat facet, so it really just sparkles.
And I can see you've done that on some of these finished pieces. We're talking about magnets, picture frame embellishment. So, you know, metal doesn't just have to be for jewelry. It can be for all kinds of decoration.
All kinds of stuff.
I love these ideas. I love those wine glasses and the way that you can identify each of them with a personalized trinket.
Yes.
Super cool. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you for having me.